Let's be real. Drawing hands is pain. If you've ever hidden them behind backs or stuffed them in sleeves, you're not alone. But with Clip Studio Paint's tools, you can finally stop dodging the hand struggle. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to pose, light, and stylize hands, even if anatomy makes you cry a little. Introducing the 3D model feature. One of Clip Studio Paint's best tools is the 3D drawing figure. While it's designed for the whole body, it's constructed well enough to provide surprisingly accurate details for individual parts, including the hands. With just a few adjustments, the 3D model allows us to change the pose, proportions, and even lighting with ease. For demo purposes, I've zoomed in on the hand and used a simple, neutral pose. This makes it easier to clearly illustrate each step and focus on the details without distraction. Adjusting the hand model. To start editing the hand, follow these steps. Select the 3D model using the Operation tool. Go to the Tool Property palette. Click Subtool Detail, the wrench icon. Navigate to the 3D Drawing Figure section. Click the hands icon. Once there, you'll be able to adjust the thickness or slimness of the hand and the length and proportion of the fingers. Move your cursor over the sliders to preview changes in real time. Choosing a hand pose. There are 3 main methods to pose the hand. 1. Using hand pose sliders. In Subtool Detail, go to Hand Pose. Use the sliders to open or close the hand. You can lock finger positions using the chain icon next to each finger. 2. Hand Scanner option. This is my go-to method. Use your device's camera to capture your own hand pose. The scanner will imitate your gesture and apply it to the model. For best results, position your hand so the palm is visible to ensure the scanner captures more detail. 3. Manual adjustment. Still using the Object tool, click on any part of the hand. Use the sliders to manually adjust each joint for more precision. This method gives you full control and is ideal when refining a scanned or preset pose. Personally, I often use the hand scanner for quick setup and then manually tweak the joints to better match what I need. The pose sliders are great for brainstorming or when you need a quick base. Once you're happy with the hand pose, you can enhance the realism and depth by adjusting the lighting settings. Thoughtful lighting helps you better understand the form and adds drama to your reference. How to change the light direction. With the 3D hand still selected, open the Subtool Detail panel. Go to the Light Source tab and move the ball to shift the direction of the light. For this demo, I'm going to turn off the cast shadows. To add a second light source, open the Object list and enable Directional Light 2. Adjust its angle and intensity the same way. This adds more depth and makes the reference more visually interesting. Click on the 3D figure to return to default options. Reduce the outline thickness by going to the Outline section and adjusting the outline width slider to your liking. A thinner outline gives it a more subtle, natural look. With the hand pose set, lighting adjusted, and the model cleaned up, you now have a solid and personalized reference to draw from. We can proceed to coloring and painting over it. One of the easiest ways to add color and atmosphere to your 3D reference or grayscale sketch is by using a gradient map. This tool lets you remap values to different colors, giving you an instant mood or lighting pass to work with. To apply a gradient map, click on New Correction Layer in the Layer panel and choose Gradient Map from the list. In the Gradient Map editor, you'll see a color bar with sliders. This is where the magic happens. The left side of the gradient represents the darkest values, and the right side represents the lightest values. To add more colors to the gradient, hover over the gradient bar until you see a plus sign. Click to add a new color stop and customize it as needed. Gradient mapping tips. To avoid muddy tones, don't drag the sliders vertically to adjust brightness. Instead, move them diagonally and also shift the hue. Spacing also matters. Closer sliders to more obvious color boundaries. Wider spacing. Smoother, more seamless transitions. Experiment with spacing and color temperatures until the gradient matches the tone you're aiming for. What's great about gradient maps is that even if you change the pose or adjust your lighting, the color mapping updates automatically, so you still get instant stylized color without repainting from scratch. Once you're happy with the result, you can start painting or drawing over the gradient. Note, at this point, you should have 3 main layers: the paper layer, the 3D model layer, the gradient map correction layer. Before moving on to the painting phase, I recommend merging the visible layers into a new raster layer. But first, hide the paper layer to avoid flattening it into the result. This newly merged layer will serve as your base for painting and adding stylized details. Drawing stylized details. The 3D model is a great starting point, but it's your observation and personal touch that bring it to life. This is a hand I previously drew to prepare this tutorial, and I'll walk you through the areas I focused on to enhance realism and style. But first, when refining, I primarily use airbrush with hardness control for soft shading and form building, textured blender to smooth out transitions while maintaining surface texture, and a custom brush with one side sharp, the other side soft, which is perfect for sculpting edges. Now, going back, the first detail we can enhance is the finger shape and flow. To make fingers feel more dynamic and natural, avoid overly flat or rigid forms. A useful way to think about finger anatomy is to imagine bamboo segments. Each joint slightly bulges where two segments connect. So, instead of drawing the finger segments flat, I mimic the slight flare that happens just before each joint, where the flesh naturally bulges a bit. Emphasizing this in a stylized way adds flow and a sense of structure to the fingers. Now, going back to our model, to reshape the form, begin by estimating where the joints are. These act as anchor points where curves, overlaps, and volume shifts converge. Use color picking to match nearby tones, then paint over those areas to sculpt and exaggerate the form more intentionally. Alright, before we move on to the next step, I'm going to refine a few small details just to clean things up a bit. If you're a fan of line art but don't want to redraw everything, here's a quick trick. Use the liquify tool, set the effect to pinch, and gently go over the lines you want to make thinner. It's a great way to tidy up without extra effort. And if you're blending colors but don't want to mess up the edges of your form, just turn on lock transparent pixels. That way, any blending or soft shading stays neatly within the shape you've already established. Next, indicating the metacarpals. The metacarpals, bones between the wrist and fingers, are often visible, especially in slim or flexed hands. In my style, instead of drawing lines directly, I focus on sculpting the space around them, letting the form emerge through light, shadow, and shape. Lightly sketch triangle-like shapes between the fingers to plot their placement. Use the airbrush and adjust hardness and opacity depending on the lighting. Harder edges appear on the highlight-shadow boundary, especially with strong light direction. Knuckles and light division. Knuckles may or may not be prominent, but when visible, a good trick is to imagine a diamond shape below each finger. Divide the diamond into 4 sections to plan the light and shadow. Paint over then. Use the blend tool lightly to create a textured appearance, rather than blending perfectly smooth. This mimics subtle skin variation. Let's move on to the veins. These subtle lines add a lot of realism and structure to your drawing. Start with the airbrush set to mid-hardness and lightly trace over the metacarpals using a light tone. Enhance the underside of the veins using the custom brush with a darker color. Gently blend parts out to maintain a natural look. Joint shadows for stylization. To push the stylization further, I often add extra shadows just below the joints, areas where light wouldn't normally hit. This breaks realism slightly, but adds depth and artistic character. Don't be afraid to experiment with this step and see what feels right for your style. Painting the nails. Nails usually sit just at half the last segment of the fingers. Here's how I place them. Divide the segment vertically into 4 parts. The nail base starts roughly at the 1-4 mark from either side. Use the custom brush to outline all sides with a slightly darker tone. Fill the nail with a soft pink tone. Then, add a small highlight to one area for a polished, glossy look. Final color pass with overlay. To finish it all off, create a new layer set to overlay. Using a low-hardness airbrush, go over. Reddish tones on joints, fingertips, or areas under pressure, and bluish tones around veins for a touch of realism. This final pass ties the skin tones together and brings the drawing to life. Additional considerations for other hand poses. When hands bend or compress, skin naturally folds and overlaps. Capturing this helps add depth and believability to your drawing. Use a custom brush to mark these overlapping areas with a slightly darker tone. If you're unsure where folds occur, observe your own hand in similar poses. Pay close attention to creases at the knuckles, joints, and palm. Lightly blend with a textured blender to soften the transition without erasing structure. Palm lines. Palm lines vary from person to person, but the approach to drawing them is similar to skin folds, just more subtle. Frontal finger nails. When drawing a hand from a frontal angle, where the fingertips are closest to the viewer, keep in mind, nails are not flat. They curve slightly over the fingertip. This subtle change in form helps reinforce the perspective and prevents the nail from looking pasted on. Drawing hands can be tricky, but with the right tools and a bit of creativity, it becomes a fun and flexible process. Whether you're using 3D models for structure or layering your own style on top, the goal is to make the process work for you. Don't be afraid to experiment. Every hand you draw brings you closer to mastering them. Happy drawing!